Rockers, this is Megan and I am back today with a layout for the Crafty Maven Getaway. So here I am showing you all of the products that came in the May 2025 kit, and I will be using most of these products. There's only a few of them that I don't use, and I'm very proud of myself for how much I used on this layout, mixed media wise. It's been a long time since I've done a very mixed media heavy layout, and I will say that this layout was a bit challenging, but it was a lot of fun to dive into these new supplies that I got from Hannah and from the Crafty Maven Getaway shop. I will have links down below where you can get each of these supplies, and also if you'd like to sign up for the kit club, I will have those down there as well. So this layout took about 3.5 hours to create, and it took multiple days. I think it was 2 days. And like I said, 3.5 hours. So I had a lot of rest time in between, letting each of the layers dry. And I even waited a little bit after this first day. I came back the next day and I did a little bit more mixed media, and then I let that dry for a couple hours. And it's kind of how the process is with a lot of mixed media, especially if it's wet. So this second product that I use was a spray, and it is a gloss spray. Here I'm just using the excess and I'm just putting it down on a piece of paper, a scrap piece of paper, because I didn't want to waste it. And then I'm going to pull the stencil up and I'm going to go and wash the stencil. Okay, now I'm back and I'm going to do the third mixed media product, which is going to be this lunar paste. I believe that's from Simon Hurley. And this one, I think, is my favorite part of the layout. And by the end, most of it does get covered up. And that is the unfortunate part about mixed media. But it is kind of just what it is. And sometimes you cover it up, sometimes you don't, and you just kind of deal with it. I did have some bleed through on the pink portion of the mixed media, but that is okay. Now here, this is where I'm kind of struggling with, do I keep going or do I let this dry? I ended up letting it dry overnight, and this is the next day. So now I'm going to add in this yellow. I believe this is called fossilized amber, and I wasn't too sure if I really wanted to do the yellow because the other colors that I have are just greens and then like pink and then the burgundy maroon color. But I decided to do it anyway, and I do really like how that looks. Now, my layout by the end of this is going to look completely different. And I did post an image at the very beginning of the video of the layout that I am scrap lifting. So I will have a link to my Pinterest board where I did find that layout. My layout is definitely completely different. So now here we are back, and it is a few hours later, and this is where I kind of decide to go ahead and add some more layers to each of the colors. I'm not really happy with how this yellow part turns out, and in the end I actually cover up most of it with the photos and the photo mat, so it works out just fine. But a lot of this is just trial and error, and it's been a long time since I've really used mixed media on my scrapbooking. And you can see here my idea was to kind of do like a paintbrush stroke over the top of that stencil, but I used too much of the paint. And I will link all of the products that I used before, and I totally am blanking on the product that I used, but I mixed a white, I'm not even sure what it is. It's kind of like a texture paste or something, with the yellow distress crayon, and that worked out really well. It just worked out too well. So that was a little bit of a bummer. I didn't want it to cover up the stencil completely, and so I decided to let that dry for a little bit, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to do a little bit of stenciling over top of the paint. But here I am just adding some paint splatters to each of the colored areas. And I like how that turns out. I just add a little bit of water to each of the thicker paints and texture pastes, and that works out pretty well. I'm gonna let all of that dry for a little bit, like I did say, and then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna start cutting apart the circles for my paper. Now, I was really proud of myself. I actually used all of the kind of textured and mixed media types of paper that Hannah had in this May kit. I didn't reach for any papers from my stash, which that wasn't even a challenge I was trying to do. Like, the biggest challenge was to use a lot of mixed media and then also to do layers. So I added this challenge of only using supplies from the kit as I was scrapbooking. So here you can see I am adding more of that distress crayon to that yellow layered, the mixed media layers, and it does come through, and I do like the way it looks. I'm just still a little bit bummed. I wish I hadn't done such thick of a layer on that so that the paint stroke could have been seen, but that's okay. So now here is where I'm going to start bringing in the photos, and I'm going to mat them, and I'm also going to bring in the papers from the kit. So I at first was thinking I was going to mat the photos on this really cool pink textured paper, but then I decided against it, and I went into my stash and I found a white paper and a black paper, and I'm going to mat the two photos of my stepdaughter showing off her art pieces on white, and then the picture that has just the snowman art piece wasn't big enough and it just looked off, so I decided to mat that one on the black paper and then the white, and then now I am matting all three of those photos on the black paper. Then I'm going to place it down on top of that yellow layer, and here I am bringing in different sizes of circles, and I'm just using things that I have in my stash, and I'm going to start cutting them out by hand. I really love this textured paper. I need to ask Hannah where she got it from, because I want to get more of it. It is a lot of fun. It would be really cool to use in a mixed media journal type of layout or spread. So I cut apart all of those pink. It's a very light pink color. And then I'm going to pick out, I think it's 3 or 4 other pieces of paper from the kit. And I'm just going to trace a bunch of different sizes of circles, and I'm going to cut them all out, and then we are going to start putting them down on the layout. So now I'm going to bring in the layout again, and this is where I start to have fun with building all of these paper and circle layers. So I'm going to start out by just placing all of these circles down around the layout. And at first I'm going to let a little bit of that yellow kind of peek through, but the more and more that I play with these circles, I decide that I am actually going to cover up more of the yellow. And also I'm going to bring in more layers behind the photo mat, and that is also going to kind of make it so that it covers up the more burgundy and yellow areas on the layout, which does kind of bum me out because I really did love that burgundy color, but I still have more of that product, so I will definitely be using it on other layouts. Okay, so now I'm just starting to glue everything down, and I think that is probably a majority of what is left on this. And then I'm gonna bring in more of the textured papers from the kit, and I'm gonna back the photo with that. So here you can see I am starting to do that. I'm just doing simple layers and just gonna be gluing them down and keeping it really easy. The challenge this month in the Crafty Maven Getaway destination group on Facebook is to use layers, and the easiest way for me to use layers is just to mat the photo, especially where I want a lot of the stencil to be poking through on each of these different colored sections of the layout. I decided that doing my layering behind the photos would be the easiest. I'm also bringing in some scraps from leftover pieces, and I'm going to be gluing a couple of those down on the layout, and I don't have very much left here that I'm going to be doing. I do decide to bring in some of the embellishments from the kit. We got the Vicky Bouton Floral Emporium embellishment pack, the whole thing, which there is a crazy amount of embellishments in there. And so here you can see I'm just sorting through all of them and trying to pull out reds, pinks, greens, and yellows. And so I pull all of those colors out, and then I'm going to sift through them and decide which ones I'm actually going to put on the layout. And now I'm going to start gluing all of those embellishment pieces down. And I am going to bring in a couple of pieces from that other embellishment pack that you can see to the left right now. That one is, I believe it's called We Are Family by Echo Park, and I think it's a few years old, but it is it's an awesome collection. I really love that collection. I believe I have that collection in my stash, and I didn't have these pieces of embellishment, so it was really nice to be able to add this to my stash and have that extra kit. So I am going to bring in the date here. I am stamping that with an old stamp, rotary date stamp. And here I'm going to start cleaning up. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this layout. Make sure you come and join us over in the Facebook group. I will have all those links below and all the links to the products that I used today. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you guys again next time. Bye.